Increasingly, groups representing the development sector and special interests are expressing competing interests for the use of natural resources. When this happens, negotiations between these groups and the manager of these resources become necessary. Resource managers must represent their agency's position while facilitating a process that achieves a satisfactory decision and meets the collective interests of the parties involved. This video program presents skills for interest-based negotiation within the context of a four-stage dispute resolution process. It's part of a training package that demonstrates how to move individuals from hardline positions to consensus-based decisions. In our program, a portion of public land is being disposed of. Julie, a public land manager, has convened a meeting with all interested parties. Present is Harvey Pitch, a local farmer. Harvey has expressed interest in purchasing the land which is adjacent to his property. Other participants include Gordon, a provincial fish and wildlife biologist. Claire, the manager of a ski shop and representative of a local tourism authority, who has her own ideas about how the land should be used. And Parker, who represents the local environmental group, Friends of the Wilderness. Stage 1. Introduction and Establishment of Expectations.
You the only one here, Gordon?
Well, good evening, Mr. Pitch. How are you? I passed Parker on the way here. He should arrive any minute. Julie's in her office with Claire Elliott, I think.
What the hell are they doing? Cooking up a deal before we even get started?
I'm sure it's nothing like that. Help yourself.
Hello, Mr. Pitch.
Claire, is your dad coming?
No, this proposal's my idea.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, everyone. I saw Parker coming down the hall, so we should be able to start on time.
So, you two been out cooking up a deal? So, been out having a private meeting?
Nah, that's not fair.
Look, if you ask me, this whole thing seems like a big waste of time.
I don't blame you for being skeptical, Mr. Pitch, but why don't we wait till the end of the process before we make up our minds? And in the meantime, can we commit ourselves to a frank and open discussion? And we'll also have to make a point of arranging a way to share information.
But this is a busy time of year for me.
Well, Mr. Pitch, you can't expect the government to make a decision on all that land without consulting the affected stakeholders. We just don't work that way.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hi, Parker. Shall we start? As Mr. Pitch has pointed out, we're all very busy people, so perhaps we can set up a few ground rules. It's 6:30 now. Can we all commit for 2 hours for this evening's session?
Sure.
Great. We may not get finished all our business tonight, but I hope that we'll all be available for a follow-up. As you're all aware, Mr. Pitch
Call me Harvey.
Harvey has applied to purchase some public land.
Hold on. Now, we're interested in developing some of that land.
And the rest of you represent parties which have expressed interest in the future of that land. So we're here to see if we can come to some kind of agreement. We're going to be making some important decisions. Can we commit to giving our full attention to the discussion and try our best to keep interruptions to a minimum?
Fine by me.
Can we smoke?
Well, the government smoking lounge is right outside the back door.
Sorry, Harvey, this is a government building. We'll try to arrange a break later.
Will someone be recording the minutes and the proceedings?
I had hoped to keep this as informal as possible. I'll be taking a few notes to record any decisions we reach or tasks we feel need action. And, of course, I'll share them with all of you.
I'm kind of used to making notes to jog my memory.
Oh, by all means, organize your thoughts any way you want. And, of course, we can all use the flip charts. But keep in mind that the details of who says what are not as important as the decisions we make as a group. I was just hoping that we could limit our paperwork to general notes.
As long as I get a copy on your letterhead.
No problem, Parker. So we can all agree that we have no need for formal minutes and that I'll take care of recording our decisions and recommendations.
Anything that helps cut back on government rigmarole works for me. Let's just get on with this thing.
Okay. And Harvey, this might be a good time to talk about open discussions and sharing information. Can we all agree that if anyone has information that's relevant to this group, they should share it with the others? Mm-hmm. All right. In that case, I propose that we take a look at the issues before us, and then, as Harvey says, we can get on with it. This is an open process. It gives us the opportunity to stretch our imaginations and come up with a solution that reflects the needs and interests of everyone at this table. It's a joint effort. Our aim is to find a solution that's fair, wise, expedient, and implementable.
I like the expedient part.
What if we don't come up with one?
I'll have to make a decision based on what I believe is in the best interest of the resource and the public.
In other words, we go through all this and then you tell us about a decision you've already made?
Perhaps I should explain my role. As a land manager, my job is to make a decision. But if we can come up with a consensus, I'll base my decision on what we've agreed to.
So you mean whatever we decide here is final?
Provided it meets certain criteria.
Such as?
Well, first of all, it has to be politically acceptable.
Heaven help us.
Well, I wouldn't sell the process short. In our experience, if a group can reach an agreement involving such varied interests, it's awfully hard for someone at a higher level to interfere or to change it.
It also has to be consistent with current provincial and municipal legislation and policies.
It also has to be practical, enforceable, and have longevity.
Which leads us to a discussion of authority to speak for the groups that you represent. Harvey, you obviously speak for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Claire, you aren't actually the owner of Deep Snow Sports, are you?
No, Deep Snow is a family business, and my parents are the legal owners. But I'm the manager, and this development was my idea. If I say we have a deal, we have a deal.
Parker, has Friends of the Wilderness given you the authority to speak on their behalf?
Well, I represent a broad range of conservation interests. We're a very democratic organization, and we have a consultative process which...
In other words, you're all talk and no action.
In other words, Harvey, I'm fully aware of my mandate. If we don't get what we want, I'll seek guidance from my colleagues. On the other hand, if I believe we have a deal, I'm sure I can convince my board to live with it.
Okay. If everyone's clear on that, we can proceed. As Gordon indicated, we've had great success with this process, as I'm sure that the people that were involved in the discussion around Rat Lake and Dizzy Creek would agree.
Since they apparently don't care what happens to our wildlife.
They would agree that a lot can get done if we set up a positive framework for what we hope to accomplish.
Look, what is all this about? I just want to buy a parcel of land that's next door to my farm.
Provincial forest, to be precise.
I just want to know, are you going to sell it to me or not? There's a lot of work to be done before spring.
Farming's not the only thing that land is good for. Deep Snow has plans for a cross-country ski area just east of there. We're going to need an access road and a parking area.
I'm certainly hearing differing opinions, but I think there's also room to identify some common ground. Before we get into any of the details, can we all agree that there are differences of opinion as to how this land should be managed?
No doubt about that.
And can we also agree that what we need is a plan that will reflect the needs and interests of everyone at this table?
It's a place to begin, sure.
Great. We have agreed that we are committed to negotiating a plan that meets the needs and interests of all parties. Shall we proceed?
Sure.
Stage 1. Introduction and establishment of expectations. During Stage 1, establish the need to negotiate. Discuss whatever ground rules may be needed. Set a positive, future-focused tone. Express areas in which there is already substantial agreement. Meet the other's communication style and get commitment to proceed. Stage 2. Discussion and definition of the issue.
Okay, it's agreed. We're here to determine a land use plan that will meet the needs and interests reflected by the people at this table. Perhaps this is a good time to take a few minutes to describe the... Oh, Claire, I thought we agreed there'd be no interruptions.
This will just take a minute. Hello? Oh, hi, Ron. Just fine, but... Yeah, sure, I'd like that. It's just that, well, I'm tied up in a meeting right now. I'll call you back in an hour or so, okay? Right. Bye. I hate these things. Anyway, I apologize. I'll just shut the darn thing off.
Thanks, Claire. That'll make it easier to concentrate. Gordon, what can you tell us about this area?
Well, it's a parcel of approximately 160 acres, which, as Mr. Pitch has said, is adjacent to his farm. The parcel is bounded by the Stony River, which isolates them from other nearby public lands and the nearest developed public road access. Access to these lands is currently limited to river access and a legal government road allowance.
Which is not developed.
That's right. The area is currently managed under a series of protective notations, and we call these PNTs. The first is held by Fish and Wildlife for the elk habitat. The second, for river recreation site potential, is held by the Land Management Agency. And the third, for potential timber harvesting, is held by the Provincial Forest Service.
I suppose you plan to clear-cut this virgin timber.
Well, that's not virgin forest. Mostly spruce and aspen. My dad and uncles logged it when I was a kid.
Thanks, Gordon. Now, perhaps this is a good time for each of us to describe the situation as we see it. And Harvey, since you initiated the process, perhaps you can begin for us.
Well, like I said, I don't know what all the fuss is about. I run a beef herd on 320 acres of grazing land. It's land that I own free and clear. It was homesteaded by my grandfather. At one time, that might have been enough to make a decent living, but not anymore. Now, there's over 160 acres of crown land right next door. If I could add that to my place, I should be able to make a go of it. But if I can't, I might just as well shut her down tomorrow. It's not like that parcel's being used for anything.
Oh, I guess the elk don't count.
I think we've all agreed that if there were no interruptions, we'd have a more productive meeting.
Well, the elk do come through in the wintertime. But hell, they wander all over the place. Besides, there was a darn sight more of them back in the 50s when they logged that place.
So what do you propose, Harvey?
I want to buy the land, clear it and seed it for pasture and hay.
What? Sorry. This is unbelievable.
You'll get your turn, Parker. Thank you, Harvey. Claire.
Well, we're not after this entire parcel of land. It's just that for the past year...
Excuse me, Claire. When you say we, you mean?
My company, Deep Snow Sports, along with the Spruce Valley Tourism Authority. We're developing a cross-country ski area here, just east of Harvey's place. And it's a beautiful location. And as Harvey says, no one ever goes in there. If we could develop a good access road, we could attract a lot of visitors to this area. People who would spend money in town, at the restaurants, motels.
Not to mention the ski shop.
I'm not ashamed to be in business for a profit.
At the expense of wildlife habitat?
Look, studies show that cross-country skiers are very responsible people.
Studies can
Excuse me, Claire, Parker, speaking of responsible people, the best way for us to achieve the goals that we've agreed to is to have the courtesy to listen to each other's point of view. So, Claire, your group wants to make sure that you have access to the backcountry.
That's right. And because of the terrain, we also feel that this would be a great spot for a small parking lot and maybe a pair of change rooms.
What do you mean by terrain?
It's the only flat spot in the area.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Parker.
Well, I represent Friends of the Wilderness. Bears and big cats are being driven farther and farther into the mountains. And now this government is just destroying a crucial piece of elk range. It's obvious to us that we have to live in harmony with nature. Someone has got to draw the line at all this encroachment of habitat.
And put me out of business.
Harvey, you'll get a chance to speak.
I'm sure this gentleman is a responsible farmer. But the fact is he intends to clear-cut the timber, haul up the stumps, and put up fences. I've got nothing personal against Mr. Pitch, but this wholesale destruction of wildlife habitat has got to stop. And as for this cross-country development scheme, that's a whole other story. Building access roads is just the first step. They'll be in there with the mechanical grooming machines, warming huts, and before long, a lodge or a condo complex, and of course a golf course so they can use the place in the summer.
There are no plans for condos or golf courses.
Yet.
So, Parker, your concern is that any development in that area will have a negative impact on wildlife.
It's more than just that. We're concerned about the net loss of habitat in the province. We need a provincial policy that clearly spells out the will of this government to protect and preserve the wildlife. We've been a leader in national policy before. This is a chance for all of us to make a difference. As far as I'm concerned, we'd be happy to see the province buy Harvey's land and turn it back into habitat.
Great. Why don't we all leave and turn the province back over to the buffalo?
Harvey, please. So, Parker, you see this as a local instance of a province-wide issue.
Loss of habitat is a worldwide problem, but the solutions have to be local ones.
Okay, thank you, Parker. Gordon, you gave us a little description of the area before. What are Fish and Wildlife's interest in all of this?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we are very supportive of this consultative process. As Julie mentioned before, we found it to be a very effective means of shaping the future of the resource. Having said that, from a biological perspective, this area is a significant breeding ground for a herd of elk. And in the department's opinion, the elk herd is an important provincial resource. I'd have to say that a real concern is for the welfare of the elk herd. The area under discussion is considered to be quite important to this particular group of animals.
So your concern is one of habitat as well?
Well, I'm not saying that it's the only kind of habitat that the elk like, but they do seem to like what's there now.
So you need a way of protecting the elk herd?
That's right.
Okay. Finally, I should add the perspective of public lands. The area of land that Harvey wants to purchase is zoned multiple use Zone 4 under the local integrated resource plan. This means that improved range, timber production, recreation, and commercial development may be compatible with the intent of this zone. It has historical recreation use of an informal nature, hiking, berry picking, that sort of thing. And as Gordon mentioned, it's already managed under a series of PNTs for elk habitat, the potential for river recreation, and timber harvesting, which, as Harvey mentioned, has already occurred in the past. So to sum up, provincial policy is to promote multiple land use in a sustainable and environmentally responsible way.
Yeah, right.
So, let's see if I can summarize the whole situation. First of all, it appears that we would all agree that this is a very valuable piece of land, and that value or values are really key to this discussion because, as Parker says, this isn't about personalities. It's about determining land use.
I agree.
From Harvey's perspective, putting this land to work as part of his agricultural holdings would ensure the viability of his farm. From Claire's point of view, access is really the key word, although her group would also like to see a parking area with change rooms set aside. The Friends of the Wilderness look at this as part of a provincial issue in that they are concerned about the loss of habitat in general and the threat or possible threat to this local herd in particular. Fish and Wildlife are also concerned with the well-being of the herd, and the province has a general policy that there should be no net loss of forest land. As a land manager, I have to keep in mind the public land's mandate to ensure sustainable and responsible land use, while representing current planning and management policies for the area. So, in summary, we're here to determine how we can ensure the well-being of the elk herd, secure the financial future of Harvey's farm, provide access to the cross-country ski area, and ensure continued public access for traditional recreation. Is that right?
You didn't say anything about restricting encroachment.
And it's wildlife, not just the elk herd.
Okay, let me try that again. We're here to develop a land use agreement that would protect wildlife from encroachment, ensure the well-being of the elk herd, secure the financial future of Harvey's ranch, provide access to the cross-country ski area, and ensure continued public access for traditional recreational uses, all within the context of the province's resource management policies. Is that right?
I think that's got it.
Sounds like a tall order to me.
I need a smoke.
Maybe we should take a 5-minute break.
Why not? 5 minutes?
Stage 2. Discussion and definition of the issue. During Stage 2, give an unpositional statement of the issue or issues as you see them. Invite a similar response and listen carefully. Verbally recognize interests as they arise. Try to limit questions to those which clarify information. Fractionalize or break the issue into more manageable parts. Summarize what the others have said, emphasizing common issues. Frame the issues. Stage 3. Identifying and revealing interests.
Just so that we're all working from the same page, I've written up these points. We have agreed that we are here to develop a land use agreement that will protect wildlife from encroachment, ensure the well-being of the elk herd, secure the financial future of Harvey's ranch, provide access to the cross-country ski area, and maintain historical public access for traditional recreation uses, all within the context of the province's resource management policies. Are there any questions?
You know, I've had a chance to think about this, and I just don't see how I can farm this parcel of land and still manage to please everyone else.
That's an interesting point. Perhaps we can start from there. Now, it would seem to me that farming and clearing an extra 160 acres of land is a lot of work. What is it about the area that attracts you?
The chance to make a decent living. If the price of beef doubles and the cost of production and transportation holds steady for a few years, I might be okay. But there's only so much money I can make from my place. And in a few years, my son will be taking over. I mean, if we're going to survive, we need that land.
So acquiring this land is a way of increasing your business income.
This ranch has been in my family for over 60 years. I want to be able to pass it on to my son. But to do that, I still need to make sure it's a viable business.
Which means that it's also a matter of family tradition.
Well, sure. I mean, for a rancher, it all begins with the land. I mean, hey, without that, you've got nothing.
Okay. Thanks, Harvey. Claire, would you say that your main concern is one of access?
Well, my real concern is the viability of tourism in this area. I think we have a real opportunity to create jobs for a number of people here.
Through the cross-country development.
Well, that's a key part of the scheme. We know we'll have a very attractive tourist destination, but people have certain expectations of convenience associated with a family outing. We have to make sure we can meet those expectations.
To what extent do those expectations include groomed ski trails, warming huts, hotels, and hot tubs?
Well, of course, the trails won't be in the area under discussion. And as for accommodation, etc., we're hoping those developments will take place in town. Remember, it's the natural beauty of the area that makes it attractive to tourists. Really, all we want is to be assured that people can get to the area we've been developing.
Well, how many visitors do you think we're talking about here?
Well, I've got some numbers here. The studies we have are from similar existing areas, and the traffic really varies. We're talking about a family activity, so for the most part, traffic peaks on weekends, during the Christmas holidays, and March break.
For the short term, what's the point of starting a business if you don't want to expand? You won't be happy with weekend business. You'll be putting together holiday packages and who knows what promotions. I mean, look what's happened to Banff.
This is a long way from Banff, Parker.
Okay, but Claire, would it be fair to say that your main interest is in the economic development of this area?
Limited development, yes.
But limited to what?
Would you say that's the key to your concern, Parker, the scale of development?
I'm worried about unchecked development. All over this province, farmers, developers, loggers, and yes, even tourists are eating up what's left of precious wildlife habitat. As a society, we look at a piece of land. If we don't see a building on it, we think it's going to waste. But where will the wildlife live?
Hey, look, I've got nothing against wildlife. I've hunted around here since I was a kid, and I'd be the first guy to report some clown taking a deer out of season, or those lowlives who'd kill a bear for its claws and gallbladder.
Problem is, Harvey, everyone is for preserving wildlife habitat. They just don't want to do it where they live. My organization has got to stand up and make people aware how important this issue really is.
I have to agree with much of what Parker is saying. I realize that the welfare of people in this province depends on resource development. But we have to make an effort to balance this with the need to protect sensitive ecosystems.
I think I'm hearing some encouraging words, and that it would seem that we definitely share some common interests. So as a group, we'd agree with the notion that we have to make every effort to protect wildlife in this area. And that, Parker, your interests in this area include preservation of existing habitat. And Harvey, you and Claire seem in agreement that local economic development is desirable, whether it's for your farm in particular or for the region in general. And Claire, you pointed out the economic importance of maintaining the natural beauty of the area, which in turn touches on Parker's point of the importance of living in harmony with nature, which in turn is consistent with my desire for sustainable development. Gordon, it would appear that you would accept development under certain conditions.
Given conditions that protect sensitive ecosystems.
So, we have our common interests of wildlife preservation, my own desire for continued public access and sustainable, responsible development, Parker's concern for habitat preservation, and the economic interests as expressed by Claire and Harvey. Given those, how can we begin to explore specific strategies that might bring us to consensus?
I think we got a long, long way to go.
It's a challenge, but I think we're up for it. Should we take a break?
Stage 3. Identifying and revealing interests. During Stage 3, ask probing and clarifying questions. Test hypotheses about the other's interests. Give affirmation and acknowledgement to the other's interests. Make your interests known. Remain unpositional. Formulate a neutral goal statement. Stage 4. Generating options and solutions.
Okay. So far, we've agreed that we're here to develop a land use agreement that would meet the interests of all parties. And we've stated that we want to protect wildlife from encroachment, we want to ensure the well-being of the elk herd, secure the financial future of Harvey's ranch, provide access to the cross-country ski area, and maintain historical public access for traditional recreational purposes, all within the context of the province's resource management policies. Is that right?
Well, that's what we said. But I'm still not sure how we're going to come up with something to foot the bill.
I think one of the keys to a successful resolution may be in our willingness to examine each and every idea as a possible solution.
No matter how offensive?
Let's just put our ideas on the table and we can evaluate them later.
Next thing, we'll be holding hands and beating a drum.
It'll still have to meet our collective interests, but for now, we should leave ourselves open to examine each and every suggestion.
Well, seems to me that the key to the whole thing is that Harvey needs to increase his income to keep his business together. Now, Harvey's solution is to extend his grazing into this parcel of land, and that means clearing the land.
And driving away the elk.
But what if there was some other way to get income out of that land and save the elk? What if Harvey only cleared a small portion to add to his farm and got the rest of the money out of a woodlands operation?
A forest management program?
It might work. The last time that area was logged, it seemed to open things up for wildlife. Deer and rabbits. We even had more birds back then.
Okay, we're getting into details. Let's just brainstorm a number of other options, and then we can come back later and evaluate them.
I still say we just get the province to buy Harvey out.
Give me a break.
Maybe we could find another parcel of equal value.
Any others? No? Okay. Claire, what did you have in mind?
Well, properly designed, a woodland management scheme would make money for Harvey and actually enhance the attraction to cross-country skiers.
It might work. There's a lot of good timber there. But I'd still need some grazing land, though.
Seems to make sense for Claire and Harvey. Gordon? Parker?
On the face of it, I'd have to say it's not a bad idea. I think my people would be more interested in a long-term lease rather than outright sale. But we can talk about that.
Oh, come on. You can't go about making decisions based on assumptions dreamt up in 2-minute brainstorming sessions. Where's the science? What proof have you got that this logging operation won't hurt the elk?
Actually, Parker's point about the time is well taken. It's 9 o'clock. Our 2-hour session is drawing to a close.
It's not just that. I think we've reached the limit of our information. I think we all could benefit from an impartial survey.
So, Parker, you're suggesting we need some technical and financial assessment of the situation.
Why not a royal commission?
Actually, I think I have a colleague who could help us come up with the information we need. Dr. Sheila Wong has a lot of experience with woodlot management, and I could work with her on the impact on the elk.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Parker, would the choice of Dr. Wong meet your needs for more information?
Well, I'd have to validate the report, but I'm familiar with Dr. Wong's work, so sure. In theory, I'd say go ahead.
While we're at it, I think it would be useful for my department to study Claire's business plan to assist us in determining visitor impact.
No problem.
Okay. By the looks of things, that's about all we can do tonight. Gordon, why don't you go ahead and get that information, and I'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of it. Next time, we'll explore this possibility, but in the meantime, keep your minds open to other possibilities. Can we set a time for our next meeting?
The sooner the better.
Yeah, but I can't go on Tuesdays.
Okay.
I'm pretty flexible.
Okay, everyone. If we get started now, we should be able to wrap things up tonight. Can we still keep to our commitment of 2 hours? Mm-hmm. Perhaps we should begin by recapping our achievements from our last meeting. We all remember the ground rules that we set? Okay. Shall we start? Mm-hmm. Has everyone had an opportunity to go over the information? Mm-hmm. Good. We came up with a possible scenario the last time we met, and I imagine that these reports have inspired alternate approaches.
Well, I've thought of a couple of different ways you might go about this.
Well, I've had a few thoughts on it myself, and perhaps we could develop some set of objective standards we could use to test each suggestion.
Good idea. Does everyone agree? Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, whatever solution we come up with, it has to be fair, wise, expedient, and implementable. Now, given the points we agreed on from our last meeting, and using the information that Gordon has supplied us, what objective criteria could we use to evaluate our options?
To me, one criterion would be no net loss of habitat.
Whatever we come up with, the area must remain attractive to tourists.
At the end of the day, I need to see more money in the bank.
Gordon, what would you add?
Stage 4, generating options and solutions. During Stage 4, summarize areas of present agreement. Consider suggesting an easy fix. Keep in mind areas of interest which must be met. Consider brainstorming and other forms of listing. List objective criteria against which options can be measured. Seek solutions to maximize mutual gain and meet joint goals. List and evaluate options and select fair, agreeable solutions. And reality test solutions by raising hypotheticals. The program you just saw illustrated 4 stages of the interest-based negotiation process: introduction and establishment of expectations, discussion and definition of issues, identifying and revealing interests, and generation of options and solutions. By following this process, parties can be moved from their individual positions to identifying their interests, to jointly developing solutions and evaluation criteria. Interest-based negotiation is a proven method for achieving a satisfactory decision.